Ladies and gentlemen, it's Iyslander time. I made a video talking generally about the brand new wizard hero last week. But today I'm going to show you the Blitz deck that I am going to be playing today, this evening, in my Discord's Blitz event. We have a Blitz event coming up tonight, and I'm going to play Iyslander because I asked and they were like, yeah, sure, play Iyslander. So here's Iyslander. If you don't know, she's the new wizard hero. She's an elemental wizard hero that has Essence of Ice, so we can play ice cards. She has the ability that says if it's not your turn, you can play blue color strip non-attack action cards from your arsenal, as though they were instants, which is pretty cool. And she also says whenever you play ice cards during your opponent's turn, you make a frostbite for them. She has 18 health, so a little bit more durable than Kano. But overall, she has a different restriction to the old wizard thing. She can still play at instant speed, but a different restriction that you have to play around. And one we'll talk about with regards to how this deck is constructed. So let's break it down. We're first of all playing a version of the deck that is more traditionally wizard. So we're playing Crucible of Aetherweave to go along with this. This has the once per turn instant effect that basically buffs one of your arcane damage dealers by 1. So it's a pretty solid little weapon. We are also running some traditional things here. We've got the Storm Striders because why not let it fly? It also gives you Arcane Barrier too if you need it. But basically you break it, you could play anything at instant speed if it's a wizard non-attack action card. We have Spring Tunic, but we also have Heart of Ice. I'm not really decided if I'm ever going to run the Heart of Ice. I'm not sure. Because, like, I don't know if I need this effect necessarily to hit, unless I'm playing against specific matchups. But because it's Blitz, we have the ability to put this in our sideboard, so we might as well. Otherwise, we have the Spring Tunic for the extra Tunic resource every now and again. And then, of course, because we don't have to play off the top of our deck, we don't need Talismanic Lens. And because we don't need Talismanic Lens, we can run Skullcap for blocks. And blocking is pretty good, and as wizard, you generally want to block, so good for us. We can actually play that now. So, interesting thing, with Iyslander being someone that wants to play blue cards from Arsenal at instant speed, the blue wizard non-attacks are generally 1 or 2 damage, arcane damage dealers. Okay, they generally deal 1 or 2. So in order to make those a little bit more threatening, we are playing Absorbent Aether, a card that never saw play with Kano because it's too expensive. And you're like, what? It's 1. Why is it too expensive? It's too expensive because Kano had to pay 3 resources to reveal off the top of the deck, then banish it, of course, and then you pay to play that card. And so that's basically netting you like 2 cards from your hand just to commit to whatever you're putting down on the board. Absorbent Aether costs 1, so you have to now commit another resource and a card from hand in order to do all of this. But that's not how Iyslander plays. Iyslander here can play stuff without having to Kano it. She can play stuff from her arsenal, so that means we get value out of Absorbent Aether's ability for the first time in forever, right? So Absorbent Aether costs 1, it defends for 4, the red one does, and it buffs up your next arcane damage dealer by 2. Okay, just straight up 2. The yellow does the same exact thing. We run 2 reds, we run 2 yellows. The yellow does the same thing, it just blocks for 3. So it basically blocks like any other card would, like a class card. We run 1 blue, we don't run 2 blues, just 1 blue, because this one only blocks 2 and it still costs the 1, but it also still provides the buff. I may cut the blue completely, I may just add another blue in, but I like this distribution because this is a card that it still does cost something. And if we do the math right with regards to what we're playing from our arsenal, then we can do Absorbent Aether plus whatever we're playing for a single card from hand, like a blue from hand. So that makes these valuable more than they ever have been before. And we'll talk about the breakpoints as far as what that buff means as we go through our blue stack here. So first things first, we can play from our arsenal all of these cards and a few of that stack right there. But these cards are the ones that we can play from arsenal, and most of these are damage dealers, so we should talk about them. Stir the Aetherwinds is not a damage dealer, but it does come from arsenal, and it does open up our hand at instant speed because it says you can play your next wizard non-attack action card this turn as though it were an instant, and it doesn't say where, you just play it from your hand, you're good to go. It also gives a +1 buff, and yes, you can do Absorbent Aether, Stir the Aetherwinds, and then something else after that, and you'll get the buff from both of these cards. So we have 2 blue stirs. We also have 2 blue Voltic Bolts, and these can come from Arsenal. Again, all blues can come from Arsenal if it's a non-attack. And so this comes for 3, but if you play it down with Absorb and Aether, pitching a blue to pay for all of these costs, this comes for 5 instead, right? So 2 plus 3 equals 5, because math. Voltic Bolt does come for 5, and that's a nice little solid combo there. Aether Spindle, and this is going to highlight exactly what we want to do with this deck. Attacking for 3 or 4 on our opponent's turn and defending and setting our own turn up on our turn. So Aether Spindle costs 2, it deals 2, and it opts for us, which is nice for us in general, because if we combine this with something like Absorb and Aether, this pushes 4 damage, and then it opts based on what it hits. So we want to attack breakpoints. Most people aren't going to run 4 Null Rune. Some people aren't even going to run 3 Null Rune. Some people only run 1 Null Rune, and if that's the case, then we can target this by pushing 2 to 4 damage with these buffs, and go from there dealing damage over the top and getting some extra effects. We can also do some Scalding Rain blue as well, which you don't normally see people actively trying to play Scalding Rain blue down, but if this is in our arsenal, we can pay 1 resource at any time, deal 2, or if we combine it with that damage buff, then we can push this to 4. So again, we're talking about this 4 breakpoint, which is just a scary breakpoint across the board in this game. Rousing Aether is also really fantastic. So Rousing Aether is really interesting in that it also costs 2, deals 2, but then it gives you a guaranteed buff. Now, this guaranteed buff we're not really going to use a ton of, and I'll talk about why in a bit. Things like Snapback are what you would normally combo with this. We'll talk about Snapback here in a moment, because I do run it, but I haven't decided how I want to run it or how many I want to run. But still, we have a net 3 cost combo here, 2 card combo from Arsenal, can be played for 4 damage. Reverb is another one of those cards. Played from Arsenal, deals 1, opens up your hand for instant speed effects, and that's important to note because you're threatening stuff over the top if you can open your hand up for instant speed effects. And of course, with the buff, it does come to 3. And then finally, we do run 1 energy potion because we can flash it down on our opponent's turn, and 1 time snap potion. But I will say this, it's also good for you to just play this down on your turn and then arsenal an attack. Or no, I shouldn't say an attack. Arsenal a non-attack that you can play, like a blue that you can play down for some damage. That is another way to go about doing it, is you just play the potion instead and then threaten something on your opponent's turn, from Arsenal backwards. You basically do it the other way around. We run 1 energy and 1 time snap. The time snap I don't know about yet, but I put it in there because I want to try it. Now comes the interesting thing. We have some ice cards. We don't have a ton of ice cards because there aren't a ton of ice cards that we can really develop into this, but we can build this deck differently, and I do have a different version of this deck that leans more heavily into the possibility of keeping Channel Lake Frigid around. So Channel Lake Frigid, of course, is the uber nuts combo with this basically this hero. Is you flash down Channel Lake Frigid, paying 2, and then taxing your opponent for a turn or maybe 2 turns. This card's insane. It's really, really good. We, of course, run 2 of them. I have my fancy one here, and then I have my normal, just shiny one that you can't really see on the camera, but it's shiny. We also have 2 Blizzards. 2 Blizzards, they're already instants, but we could put them in the arsenal and play them if we wanted to. But it does prevent and disrupt our opponent a little bit, and that's important because we are all about defending and disrupting to a certain degree. And then finally we have Wizard's Bite. Wizard's Bite. It should be called Wizard's Bite. That'd be way cooler. Winter's Bite. Play this down at instant speed on our opponent's turn, take a card from their hand, or force them to pitch more resources than they have or more resources than they want to pay to do their full turn. So these are all disruption. This is all just disruption. And that's something that we can do with this deck that's a little different than what Kano could do. So that's why you would run something like this. Now, these cards are our bomb cards. These are the cards that we would want to play on our turn to deal massive amounts of damage on our own turn and set up a turn later for blue on your opponent's turn, kill them kind of thing. So we have Chain Lightning and Chain Lightning. There is a combo wherein you play Arsenal a blue Stir, and I'll get this out so that I could show it. You Arsenal a blue Stir the Aether Winds, right? You play this, buffing by 1 on your opponent's turn, and then you can come in from hand with something like a Chain Lightning. And this also opens up the ability for you to play something else at instant speed after the fact, and it does deal 3 damage, and then you'd get the buff from Stir. So something like Stir from the Arsenal, paying 2 resources, floating 1, pitching a blue. Chain Lightning, opening up your hand to play another non-attack action card as though it were an instant, and then dealing 3 plus 1, so 4 damage. And then we can come in with something else and possibly kill our opponent on their turn. Sort of late game plays kinds of things. Okay, we have Forked Lightning because Stir into Forked is still just really good. If you can play Stir into Forked, you just probably deal a lot of damage. So we have 2 Forked. We have Sonic Boom, though Sonic Boom is not as good in this deck. Sonic Boom is totally still playable. We do have some misses on Sonic Boom, probably more so than in Kano. Still pretty decent, so we run it, and it still just deals 3 on our turn and threatens more stuff after that. So still pretty solid. And then Voltic Bolt, arguably better than Sonic Boom because it's just straight vanilla 5. Red Voltix, Red Aether Spindle, a very scary card even in this deck, because even though we don't play off the top of the deck, if we can set up our hand to draw into good stuff after the fact, playing an Aether Spindle and then setting up our hand nicely is really, really good. So 4 damage plus any other buff that we can add, like Crucible or anything like that, can push it up. We get to opt and set up our next couple of turns, which is really good when we don't have that many ice cards. We want to set up like a 2-turn Channel Lake Frigid. We can maybe opt into that. Of course, we have Red Stir. By the way, Red Stir into Chain Lightning is also really good. I'm just saying. I mean, I've never done that. I've done that. Red Stir into Chain Lightning is still pretty solid. But yeah, Stir into just about anything is still pretty solid. And then now we're going to talk about Snapback. I have this Snapback and this Snapback in the deck. I have 2 copies of Snapback. One of them's red, one of them's blue. It's kind of interesting because I feel like you can make the argument that you should run like a full play set of Snapbacks, because once you play something from your arsenal, you open up your hand to, being able to play out Snapbacks. And that makes a ton of sense. But you could also just play more defensively. And when you look at all of this, what do you end up choosing to cut in order to play these Snapbacks? Do you end up cutting like these Absorbent Aethers? Do you cut the ice cards? Do you cut some of the blues and instead run more Snapbacks? Because that messes with your blue count and your resource base, if you will. So it becomes this really interesting thing where this almost feels in this deck kind of like a win more card to a certain degree. And that's really weird because Snapback is like one of the best cards in Wizard. And so for me, I'm going to try more Snapbacks, and then I'm also going to try less Snapbacks and see how I feel about it. But I currently have each of these in the deck. And then of course you have to run 1 Nourishing Emptiness. You have to run 1 just so that if you hit it early game, you just cruise. You have to run 1 because it's just there. It's for the memes. So this is what I have for my wizardy version. I'm doing it in quotes because I have a non-wizardy version. This is my wizardy version of Iyslander Blitz. Let me know what you think about this in a comment below. What would you change here? What would you add? What would you take away? I'm going to play this and then I'll maybe get back to you. Maybe I'll put a comment down in the comment section after, I've played the deck a couple of times, and we'll see how this whole thing plays out. I do think that this is going to be one of those heroes that I'm really excited to see what comes out of Everfest 4, because I do think they're going to give her some ice cards that she can access, and of course some wizard cards that she can access as well. If you like this, if you enjoy it, if you learned something, feel free to subscribe for more content like this. Like the video and do that sharing thing, because then more people can see the video and we can all have more fun with Wizard. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.